Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Genetic Genius Podcast. I'm so excited for Sarah Dawkins, my guest today, and we're going to be talking all about her book, Heal Yourself. Woohoo! Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Before we get started, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself so the listeners can get to know you a little bit better. Don't divulge your whole story because we're going to be talking about it today, of course.
I went into nursing. I followed in my mum's footsteps, and I decided actually we can do more to heal ourselves. And so I left nursing and became a coach, and I now coach people to self-heal. So I did 20 years as a registered nurse, and now I'm a coach. I'm married with animals, a husband, and children.
Wonderful. Well, I can't wait for us to learn more about how that you had that transition, which I think is a big part of your book and all the fun stories we're going to learn about as well. Not everyone, but there's a lot of stories in there, but we're going to talk about, a couple of your favorites. So today we're really going to be talking about your amazing new, when did your book come out? It's been out for a little bit now because you have it in a couple different languages, right?
Yeah, at the end of June last year.
Wow, that's great. So we'll be talking about Sarah's new book, Heal Yourself, the Remarkable Journeys of Ordinary People Healing Themselves of Disease in Extraordinary Ways. And we're also going to be talking a lot about like the journey of self-healing in general, which I think is so important for listeners because it can be a challenging place to be. So I'm excited for us to talk about that together.
Absolutely.
And and then the other piece is, one thing I know that you like to talk about too is how when we heal ourselves, how others can then heal too. So those are going to be some great topics. Yeah. Okay. So let's first kind of start out just hearing about your own healing journey. What inspired you? Like what was going on? What was like the backstory so that you could start your own personal journey of healing?
I think my personal journey started when I was about 20. I had psoriasis on my legs and I had steroid cream after steroid cream, fully bought into the medical model. If I need anything, go to the doctors, but got to the point where I'm like, this just isn't working. It's just not healing. So I left my legs open to the air, got the sunshine on them all through the summer, and they healed themselves. So that was my first real eye-opener to self-healing. But actually I didn't really think a lot of it because I was still fully bought into the medical model. It wasn't until 2010 when I went into a severe depression, and I'd had depression following my son and had antidepressants, which kind of made me a bit zombified, took away my emotions. So when I went back to the doctor, I'm like, I don't want antidepressants. I've tried them. They didn't do much for me. Don't like them. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I'm not going to go down the medicine route. And I really had no idea what I was going to do. I just, every day is a new day, every moment's a new moment. And it was a good year into that depression when I started feeling a little bit better. There was less tears. I realized I was starting looking outside of me. The sun was shining, the sky was blue. And I realized now I was becoming mindful. And it was that really kickstarted my self-healing. Because I thought, well, actually, I've done nothing pharmaceutically, but I'm starting to feel better. So I must be able to do more to help myself. So that was the start of it. And as I started doing more self-care, so I started looking after myself better, I started eating better, doing a bit of exercise, drinking more water. And I also at the time had an underactive thyroid, and because of the stress with the depression, I'd got adrenal fatigue as well, so I was craving salt. My blood pressure was in my boots at 80/40.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it was like that for a couple of years. So I started looking after myself more, and then I started detoxing my environment because I was using regular off-the-shelf products, makeup, and so I started looking at cleaner products that I could use, started thinking about what I was saying and how I was using my voice, and started taking a few supplements to help my thyroid, to help my adrenals. And slowly with the mindfulness, then I started practicing gratitude. I was doing some guided meditations as well. And the whole of all of that not only healed the depression that I had, which became a suicidal depression, healed my thyroid and healed my adrenals all at the same time. So I thought this has got to be the way forwards, looking at what we can do to help ourselves, to support our body. And after that, I went on to heal 2 frozen shoulders at separate times, severe debilitating headaches, and hip knee and back pain, which I realized I'd manifested myself because of my fear of moving forwards in life. So once I realized what I was doing, I could support myself more, my body, my mind, the whole physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental, to heal further and move forwards. So it's quite a journey I've been on.
Yeah, totally. I love your story too, because it's so relatable. It's very similar to many of the patients that I work with. It's when I think that what happens too is that you have this multiplying effect, right? You have one thing that happens and maybe you're put on a pharmaceutical, or maybe you don't address that one thing in the beginning. And then it just multiplies more and more. And then you get to the place you're just so exhausted, so frustrated, and you don't know what to do.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, I didn't know how I was going to heal. I had no idea about natural self-healing. I just knew I didn't want to take pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. And that's such a sad thing about the current state of our healthcare. It's people don't understand there's other options, because they think if I go to my primary care physician or my typical allopathic physician, they're going to know how to help me the best. And they're not trained in the other modalities. There's so many things out there that are so beneficial for self-healing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to go looking for them ourselves, because unless we've got people in the know around us, it's all about medicine and doctors and pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. And so when you were on your health journey, what was that main kind of turning point where you just threw up the hands and you said, this is just it. I just can't do this anymore.
Yeah. I think when I became suicidal, it was like, I can't help myself. I don't know what to do. I was in a really deep, dark abyss. And I just dressed in black. I didn't eat a lot, and I just had no idea. But with having dogs, I had to go out and walk the dogs every day. That started to pull me out of myself, because I had to go out every day. So even as depressed as I was, I still had to go out with the dogs, and I would see people on my walk and try not to give them eye contact, because it just felt so awful. But really, I had no idea. It's like, I'm so done that I don't know how to move forwards.
Right. How to get help. And so what did you do? What was that? Did you do more of kind of your own research, or did you have some people around you that helped guide you? What was what was that first step that looked like?
For me personally, it was just every day going out walking the dogs. And I think that started to pull me out of myself, because I couldn't not give eye contact to everybody. Hi, I'm like, okay, I got to look at them now and go, hi. and it was really strange time in my life, because I felt so awful. But yeah, I still had to try and put on a face and integrate with people who I saw in the street. And I think it was that, interacting with a few people, walking the dogs. And then it was, I remember definitively, it was spring that was around the time that I started to feel, actually, life's not quite so dark and bleak as it was. So it was just the fact that I was outside and walking. My family were all on the periphery trying to reach out to me. And because I was so inside myself at that time, I just didn't know how to take on board their help, how to take the help that they were trying to offer me. And it was only as I was outside, suddenly one day, I didn't cry today, or there's a bit of blue sky up there, and the buds were coming on the trees, and it suddenly started pulling. And I think it was that started pulling me out of myself.
Yeah, nature is so healing. I think that people take it for granted. And like you said, being animals too are super healing. They know so much energetically and emotionally about what we're going through. And yeah, nature, I tell my patients all the time, and I practice this one for sure, spending time outside every day, even if it's freezing outside or raining or whatever, you got to get out there.
Yes, you do. You do. Someone said there's no such thing as the wrong weather, only the wrong clothes.
That's right. That's so true. Yes. And I have a lot of layers. What type of different healing modalities did you try? I know you mentioned supplements. When you started, so you started this kind of feeling a little bit better, coming out of the depression, which is a a big place I think a lot of listeners can relate to, especially with the pandemic. A lot of my patients have been suffering with, even myself included. It's just, you can feel the world is heavy. And I think with spring coming, thank God we're moving out of that place. Did you try other things like counseling or acupuncture? I don't know, any other type of things in your, on your kind of like journey?
I went to my doctor initially and they sent me for counseling. So I saw a counselor just for a short period of time, though, not very long. But for the severe debilitating headaches I had, I went to a chiropractor who did manipulation and acupuncture. I took supplements for depression, but I also took supplements to help my thyroid.
Yeah, so important.
Yeah, hydration as well, because I had a reoccurrence of the eczema. So for that as well. And exercise, my friend used to take me to the gym. So as well as walking my dogs, I was getting out and I was socializing. I had to be around people. And whilst I didn't want to be, I knew I needed to exercise as well as just walking the dog. So it was like a whole holistic everything. And I tried to do some meditation. I had this nagging voice inside, oh, you're not worthy, you're no good. So
you had to work on some things first.
Yeah. So I tried guided meditations actually, and they worked really well. Initially it was just about trying to feel better, raise my spirits, and then it started to be, what can I do with myself, how can I better myself? And then eventually I got to guided meditations about predicting a future. But it was slowly just to make me feel better. How can I guided meditations to reduce depression, to reduce anxiety initially.
Yeah, I love that you said that too, Sarah, about those foundations, because exercise, nutrition, proper supplements, water, and meditation, having that mindset piece, which we'll talk a little bit more about too. And those are just the basic foundations, which seem so simple, but at the same time, so healing and so needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do keep coming back to the holistic. We can't just eat better, eat more vegetables and think we're going to get well. There's a whole gambit of things we need to do.
Yeah. And water, like you said, water is so important. I'm going to drink some more right now myself. Yeah, water, our body is made up of so much water. And I do little challenges for myself all the time. Okay, how much water am I drinking today? Sometimes I get busy, I forget. I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened?
And it's easy to do.
Yeah. So if you're listening out there, how much water you had today? And if you haven't had enough, go drink some.
Absolutely.
So what was your biggest aha moment in your journey? Because it sounds like there was a lot of different pieces along the way. Was there something you're like, wow, this is the key right here? Was it the meditation, or what was your biggest moment?
Do you know, I think it was in 2016 when I went and started my coach training, because I became an accredited coach. And during that training, the lady who took the session took us into a deep meditation, an internal journey to find and heal an early trauma, emotional trauma. And I came out of that, did it in a class with about 25 or 30 people. And I came out of that meditation and it was like somebody just taking a weight off my shoulders. Wow. It was just incredible, because I not only got insight into what had happened and why it had happened, I was able to then forgive it and let it go. And I think that is really key. On top of everything that we're doing physically, we have to do some emotional and spiritual work, because we all, in the main, we tend to carry some trauma around with us and we bury it down deep and we think, oh, I don't want to open that can of worms. But actually, once we start to open it, understand it, forgive it and let it go, it's done. And then we're no longer burying it anymore. And that has implications in our relationships and our behaviors moving forward.
Yeah. Addressing that trauma emotional piece is 100% like key. It's the door that unlocks, I think, the pathway to healing. Without that, I can see that in so many of my patients. It's like you said, it's like you're putting it on the shelf and you're just like labeling it. And you're like, okay, I'll just do all the other things. And I know eventually I'll get better. I'm like, no, we have to address that emotional piece. It's your body. It's the part of the healing.
Absolutely. And it needs confidence as well to address that, because not everybody wants to, because they fear what it's going to look like and how that healing is going to happen. So now I use the similar internal healing meditation that we did during my coaching with some of my clients. And it's quite profound, the effect of it. And it's because you go in and understand it, and you can have dialogue whilst you're in that meditation with whoever needed to be from your younger years. You can understand what went on and forgive it and let it go in a place of compassion and love. And it is really profound.
It is so profound. And I love that you're doing that with your clients now too, because then you're showing how you healed yourself, and then they can experience that for themselves, which is so amazing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And what do you think about, were there specific, so you talked about the thyroid, which I think is one of the biggest keys, especially for women in their journey of healing, because I think that emotional piece of suppression goes so far back in our timeline. We haven't had the voice, our power to say what we want, say what's been bothering us when we're still coming into having this voice. So I am so grateful that you said that about the thyroid, and just because it's a big piece, that component that a lot of people don't associate either with the other illnesses that they might be experiencing.
Absolutely. Because your thyroid's linked to your throat chakra, and it's about really speaking our truth, so whilst we can supplement with iodine or kelp or any of those, we still have to address the energy center below it as well.
Yeah, it's all connected. You said the holistic model.
Yeah.
What about diet and like nutritional aspects? Did you, when you first started feeling ill, or when you were having experiences where you were starting on that healing journey, did you have to like really dive in and look, and how was your diet at the time? Did you have to do a lot of changes? Are you still having to do a different kind of like lifestyle now? How much do you think the dietary piece is connected to the healing piece?
Oh, it's very connected to it. And for me, I cut out wheat and dairy because they're known to cause inflammation. And I think that really helped my thyroid healing as well.
Yeah.
And it definitely helped my skin issue, develop more psoriasis and eczema over the years. And that just seemed to go. Actually, I had acid reflux as well. And that just went when I stopped eating dairy.
Right. Yeah. It can be so acidic for the system.
Absolutely. So in the main, my eating habits were quite healthy. But by cutting out the wheat and the dairy and the gluten, and eating more organic, it definitely improved my health. And it was only, 2 years ago, I stopped drinking alcohol. And I actually found that my knuckles, because I was starting to have pain in my knuckles, and the pain suddenly went away.
It's amazing how things like that happen. You're like,
isn't it just?
Yeah. And we forget, I think too, when we cut something out, like you said, gluten or dairy, okay, I'm going to experiment and cut out something for a few months. And then you start to feel so good. You're like, oh, I feel great. I'm just going to add it right back in. And you forget how. Yeah. But alcohol is definitely an inflammatory one for sure. And especially from the hormonal perspective, and the thyroid, it just changes the whole hormonal communication experience.
Absolutely.
So nutritional piece sounds like it's a big piece. And I know that it can be sometimes challenging for people to undertake that.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you have some tips on that? When you work with your clients, how do you guide them in that piece? Because I have patients sometimes, oh, no matter what, I'm not going to give up XYZ. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I love bread and I love cheese.
Right. I love bread. I'll never give it up.
Yeah. But how much do you love that joint pain? How much do you love that headache? How much do you love that bloated belly? It's a fine line between giving it up, cutting it down, and the symptoms that you've got. And I found chickpea flour is great. It's very versatile. Like if I want cakes and pastries and pies with that flour instead of regular wheat flour, we can substitute. We don't have to go. The gluten-free products, the bread and some of the cakes and biscuits and whatever, have got such a lot of ingredients.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Cook from scratch, and then you know exactly what's going in your food.
Exactly. You're not putting all the preservatives like bar gum and everything that's holding it together. And and so you can really choose. And I love what you said about the chickpea flour is great, and coconut flour can be really helpful. I like that one too. And tapioca can be good too for that softening, that soft flour. So yeah, there's lots of great alternative choices.
Absolutely.
And lots of
Absolutely, yeah.
resources. Like the internet is filled with other people who are also eliminating gluten.
Yeah, isn't it just? And so many recipes online as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Millions. So millions. Let's talk about in your book, which I love. Let's talk
Thank
about
you.
you're welcome. The stories piece. Cause I think your story has been the beginning. So people that are listening out there that are going to get your book, the beginning part is all about Sarah and her journey. And then the rest of the book is all about these wonderful stories. So how did you, meet these people? Were these your clients? How did you, where did these stories come from? Because there's so many different journeys in the book.
Yeah. I reached out on the internet when I first started writing my book. I'll just backtrack a little. When I first started writing, it was just going to be my journey about how I self-healed depression without pharmaceuticals. And then I thought, it's just about me. I've got 10,000 words and I don't know where I'm going from here. So I actually put it away for 5 years and then decided I needed to bring it out and do a bit more. So I reached out on the social media platforms that I was on and said, I'm looking for some self-healers who've healed without pharmaceuticals, preferably. A whole range of conditions, and I'm writing this book. And I got 2 or 3 people came back to me, didn't really have a plan. So I'm like, okay, we'll just put those chapters in. And then I put it to bed for probably another couple of years because this little voice went, who do you think you are? What are you doing? And then I thought, no, I woke up one day, I'm like, no, I've really got to write this book. I've got to do it. I've got to help as many people as I can understand that we can self-heal. So that's when I started reaching out more, and I joined more social media platforms, and I started looking specifically for people who have got health problems that hadn't got any stories in for at that time. I reached out and I said to them, this is what I'm doing. I can't pay you. You need to donate your story, but it's to help other people, to help themselves to heal. And the vast majority of people were fully on board with it. So I then started saying, okay, about 1,000 to 1,500 words in your own words of what you had, how you healed it specifically, so that the people who read the book can understand that they too might be able to heal the same problem with the same way that you've healed your. And they all came on board. They all donated their stories. And it's just fabulous. I've got so many different health problems that have all been healed. And I didn't want just one of anything, because someone could go, that was probably a fluke. Just one person healed that.
Of course, that's a fluke, right? Yeah.
But I wanted to try and to alleviate that potential complication. So I'm like, well, if I can get 2 people for as many different health problems as I can. And lots of people came to me. It was fabulous. Absolutely fabulous.
That's so great. Yeah, it's such I was like, oh, I can't wait to ask her about how she got the stories. And I think when it also is that part of that healing aspect too, when I see my patients be able to share their story in a way that one can help other people, but also it helps. It's almost like like you said earlier, with taking that weight off of their shoulders, it helps too. It's not my story anymore. And I think because sometimes you're so labeled and you relate so much to the story, and then being able to just let it go. And that can be so much of a healing journey in itself.
Absolutely. And it is our story. And we're the writers of it. So why can we not write a new story? Why do we have to have this vision that this is what we're told it is, and this is how it's going to be? Why do we have to follow that?
Right. Yeah. I love that. I talk to at the beginning of every year when I do my New Year's work with my patients. I'm always talking to them like, okay, what's your story going to be like for your health this year? How are you going to shift things? And because it's true, we can create anything that we want, and we can let go of anything that's not serving us in this moment in time. And then but when you're in the thick of it, sometimes it's hard. Like you said, when you're in the depression, it can be sometimes hard to see the light of coming out of it. There's no hope. And so when you make that new vision, I'm just going to rewrite my story. Who knows what it will be like? Maybe it'll come true. Maybe it won't come true, but I can rewrite it.
Absolutely. Yes.
What's one of your favorite? I'd love for us to talk about, if you could just pick one of the stories from the book. There's so many in here, so we can't tell all the, but if you could pick one, I would love, if you don't mind, I'd love for us to go through one of the stories so that the listeners can understand a little bit about what that looks like and what they're going to be experiencing when they're reading it.
Wow. I don't have a favorite because
or one that you think that would be good for us to talk about, I guess.
Oh gosh. Okay. So One of the ladies wrote about her chemical and electromagnetic sensitivities.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Early on in the book. Yeah. So she cleaned up her eating habits and she went to I forget the name of an institution. I think it was a health institution. And she went there and found the power of forgiveness. And she details what she forgave and who she forgave. And she had some improvement in her chemical sensitivities and electrical sensitivities. But then when she went back home, she found that it hadn't truly healed and she still was suffering. So she went back to this institution. I can't remember the name of it, but some healing center, and did a lot more forgiveness work. And she literally details all the different points of who she forgave and how she forgave and what she forgave. And I love it because at the end she sums it up and says, and now I can put fuel in my car without having any symptoms. And hers it's quite holistic because it's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And she details exactly what she had to do.
Yeah. And I think that's such an interesting one in itself with the EMFs and chemical sensitivity, because it's almost, there's some things that have just been labeled that people don't understand, fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome. Well, you don't really have that. How could you have that? How could you have sensitivity to EMFs, or how could you have sensitivity to chemicals? So that people don't understand, they don't relate to it. So it's so powerful when somebody can explain, this is real and it was affecting me in this whole way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many diagnoses are out there now, people with fibromyalgia and like you say, and it's a diagnosis of symptoms, really. It's an amalgamation of lots of different symptoms.
Exactly.
And the doctor just calls it fibromyalgia. Really, it's not well understood.
No, it's not easily diagnosed. And it's like, because you have XYZ. So we're going to label you as having this, which is in its own respect can be very disheartening for the patient. And then there's in the typical treatment world, and that if you're going to a regular physician, their toolbox is nothing when it comes to fibromyalgia. And so then you're just like back to square one. You're like, okay, what happened?
And they're told it's
which is another, let's talk about that. I think that do you talk about that in your book? I didn't see that in there, but do you address kind of the issue of being diagnosed with something and saying, okay, you're going to have this for the rest of your life?
Some of my healers address it in the book, but again, it's as we've said, it's about telling your own story. Yes, this is what the doctor says based on the doctor's medical knowledge, but not many doctors of medicine understand natural self-healing, and I don't think they realize how powerful they are as well, because as a doctor in a position of authority, when they say to patients, you're going to have this lifelong and you're going to have these symptoms X, Y, Z, then people can then present and manifest those symptoms, and they're going to have them because the doctor said they're going to have them. It's such a powerful position they hold.
It's so true. Yeah. I was working with a patient that had MS, and I worked a lot with that patient just about reframing the thought process around being diagnosed and labeled. Okay, so what would your life look like if you didn't have this label? And that was a really hard question. She's like, I got to get back to you on that one, because it's like the whole life is then designated and designed around the illness. And then when you take out the illness, I'm not sure what I would look like without I didn't have that label anymore.
Absolutely, because and a lot of people build a life around their illness, around their diagnosis, because that's what they've been told by the doctor.
Don't do this.
And you can't heal it, and you're going to need all these support services. So they build that life for themselves based on what the doctor said. And actually, when you read some of the people that I've got, 3 people healed MS in my book, and they've all done something a little bit different, which to show that we can heal ourselves when the doctor says that we can't. We are our own authority.
Yeah, exactly. That empowerment piece is very important when it comes to self-healing. And some people, that's a big piece that gets lost along the way. I think, oh, wait, I do have a voice in my own healing.
Yes.
Yeah. When you were compiling the stories from all the different people, did you notice a similar kind of theme, like nutrition or environment, pharmaceutical use? You said you tried to find people that weren't using it in their self-healing journey, but as a prior use for, I would say, for the condition. Was there some kind of theme you saw when you're like, oh yeah, look at this?
I found two types of people. The type who improve their nutrition and environment around them, and then the other people who did the forgiveness work on top of the nutrition. So some were more physical and mental, and others were more emotional and spiritual alongside the physical and mental. So that everybody's done very similar things, but I found it's split into two camps.
Yeah, I think that's really important to understand, is that emotional piece is a part of the healing, and addressing it could be the icing on the cake, so to speak, of the healing journey. And when you were compiling the stories, was the mindset piece really big there on for the people that you mentioned forgiveness, but there was the meditation, the mindset piece, like the actual reframing of the aspect of the disease? Did they talk a lot about that in their stories? Some did.
Yeah, but whether others had done the reframing but just didn't document it, it's possible.
Yeah, it's hard to say, right?
Yeah. Because one of my multiple sclerosis healers documented that he was in a wheelchair, and his brother took him to the doctor, and they saw the doctor literally Googling what he could do for the healer. And that was his big aha moment. The doctor can do that. Why can't I? So it's about understanding we have the power in our hands to do that.
Right. Yes, it's true. Yeah. And Google can be a good resource. It can also, there's a lot of information out there though. So you want to make sure you're filtering it with someone who does have some experience, like myself or another natural practitioner, or like Sarah, that can help you filter it, because you don't want to just, pick things that are not going to be helpful for you.
Absolutely.
Were there specific major changes that each person had in the place of, I guess, that empowerment piece, taking charge of their own health? Did every single person, this happened to me and I'm done and I'm taking charge?
Absolutely. I would say every single one of my healers did that, because it was about, they had to make changes at some point,
right,
to start their healing journey. And some made huge changes and others made just sort of soft changes,
right?
But they all decided to make changes to start their own healing.
Yeah, I think change is a necessary component. It's okay. Yeah. The illness or the disease or the state of disruption in the body is happening. And then to get to the next phase, there has to be a change. You can't just keep going along the same route. You can't get from A to B without a straight line. It has to be some kind of other line.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If we didn't have to make the changes, we'd be well. As in, if we could just stay the same and do nothing then we wouldn't have had to change anything. But because we're not well, clearly need to make some changes.
Yeah. And there's always another state of improvement on the next page of the book. It's like, you're like, okay, I feel this great today, but what if I could even feel 100% better tomorrow if I made this change?
Absolutely. And sometimes we don't realize how ill we actually feel until we start that healing, and then suddenly it's, wow, I've got all this energy and my skin's looking a lot clearer, and I don't have eczema or reflux. So it's as we start healing, we can then look back and think, I was quite sick, I just didn't realize, because it had become an everyday norm.
Yeah, that's so true. I like that documentation piece I use with patients in that beginning visit to, okay, this is what's been going on. And when we go back, when they're feeling so good, we look back like, oh, I forgot I even had all of those things happening, which is really good. You want to be able to forget them because they're not serving you.
Absolutely. But it's, as you say, it's great to look back and go, well, look how far I've come. I really was sick. And now look, I've got boundless energy.
Yeah. Did you yourself keep some kind of healing journey, like a notebook, like a journal, not a journey, but healing notebook along your way where you were documenting things?
A friend of mine told me I'd write a book when I was in a really bad place. I'm like, don't be ridiculous. I'm never going to write a book. And she went, Sarah, please write some things down, document, journal. But my head wasn't really in the right place. So in my diary, I just wrote things like another dark day. It's really black today, because I didn't know what to put.
Yeah, but you did have that.
Yeah, but I've got a lot of days with nothing because just nothing happened. And I look back now, wow, I was really depressed. But even though I didn't write anything, I still remember that it was a dark place. And now I'm in a totally different place.
Yeah, there is hope for sure.
Yeah.
There's hope for everyone. Let's talk about the selfless healing part and how we can heal others, which is a big component of your book. So can you talk a little bit about that? What does that mean when we help ourselves? We have this place of healing. How does that then ebb out and flow into those around us?
So as we heal ourselves, we change our energy signature, and through the law of vibration, we are connected to the people around us. And as we change our energy signature, it helps the people around us, because ultimately we're all connected, we're all one.
Exactly.
And from what I read and researched, we not only heal our family going forwards, but we also heal our family behind us as well. So we don't just heal ourselves, we help other people to heal at the same time, our own healing.
Yeah, that's so true. Yes. And we help not only the physical things, but plants are physical, but we help the planet. We're all part of the planet, the birds, the animals, the trees, the water, everything around us is that same vibrational energy.
And it's all connected.
Yes, that's the big part. Pieces theirs is all connected. And you have your book connected to a couple different languages now, which is so exciting. I can see them in the picture back there. What are the other languages it's been published?
So I've got Dutch, Spanish, and French that are actually published now, and I've got Greek being currently translated, and I'm looking into German.
Wow, that's so exciting. Congrats. That's so wonderful. And that's great because a lot of people, they might be able to speak English in some specific way, but when it comes to reading it, that can be a whole nother level.
Yes.
Yes. So it's great to have that translation. And those are some really languages that are used a lot around the world too, especially the Spanish. That can be millions of people around the world that can reach, which is great.
Yeah. And I live in Spain, so it had to be my first translation.
You're like, okay, here we go. That's wonderful. How can people find you, Sarah? Website? How can they get a copy of your book and follow you on social media, those types of things?
Thank you. My website is my name, sarah.dawkins.com. My book, there is a link to my book through my website, but it's on Amazon worldwide in multiple languages. I'm on Twitter as @Dawkins_Sarah. I'm on LinkedIn as Sarah Dawkins. I'm on Instagram @sarah.dawkins.health. And I'm on Facebook as Sarah Dawkins SE. My name's Dawkins Sarah Elizabeth, because they used the first part of your email address when they changed their algorithms.
Oh, right. Yeah. So we have lots of ways we can find you, and we will put all of those links in our show notes, and everyone will be able to get a copy of your book, which is amazing. And I have one last question, Sarah, as we're wrapping up today. What if you had an unlimited budget right now? What would you do to make the biggest impact on the planet?
Wow. The same lady friend who told me I'd write my book and it would do really well, last year told me I would open clinics all over the world in my name.
Wow.
To continue the what I've written in my book. And I've written a 10 standalone module course. So I think a clinic will be a nice next step, because it could help lots of people, just to keep showing people that actually we are miracle healers, and just show them how to tap into that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love that. That's great. I can't wait to see those clinics come into your vision. That's exciting. Well, that will totally happen. I think that's one of my favorite questions to ask people, because there's so many similar visions. And that is a big one. So my podcast is all about alternative health. And some of you are like, yeah, I want to have alternative health clinics. I want people to be able to know that there are other ways to heal. And I think it's coming. It's not going to be that far down our road, because everyone's asking for it.
Absolutely. More and more people now, I think, are reaching out to look for alternative therapies and remedies and treatments.
Yeah, it's out there. So if you're looking, don't worry. There's lots of solutions and lots of ways you can help yourself heal, which is wonderful. Yeah. Thanks again, Sarah, for coming on to the Genetic Genius today. I loved our conversation, and I can't wait to share it with the world.
Thank you, Lulu.